I remember a time when I was lost in wanting, desiring, pleading, hoping. I wanted change, but I lived in a state of lack. I had no money. My circumstances were dire. And like most, I believed that if I wanted hard enough, if I prayed loudly enough, my reality would shift. But the universe does not hear your words. It sees only the state from which you operate. One night, something remarkable happened. I had been longing for prosperity, yet my every thought was filled with lack. Then, in an instant, something within me shifted. Instead of wanting, I became. I closed my eyes and I imagined not as a distant dream, but as my present reality. I felt the warmth of abundance surrounding me. I carried myself as though I were already living in the end, and soon everything changed. Wealth came not because I chased it, but because I embodied it. I became the thing I sought. You see, you do not attract what you want, you attract what you are. You say, I want love, yet you walk in loneliness. You say, I want success, yet you feel unworthy. You say, I want health, yet you dwell in illness. And so you remain in the state of want, and the universe simply affirms what you are being. Everything in this world is created first in the unseen, in imagination. Your imagination is the fabric of reality, and your state of being is the thread that weaves your destiny. What if instead of longing, you simply became? Instead of wishing for love, you lived as one who is already cherished. Instead of chasing wealth, you felt the security of abundance now. Instead of fighting for success, you walked with the confidence of one who already possesses it. The moment you assume the state of the wish-fulfilled reality, reality bends to your command. Consciousness creates reality. You need not beg or force, only assume, persist, and let the world conform to your state of being. So, I ask you now, who are you being? For the universe does not care what you want, it only gives you who you are. The great misunderstanding in life is the belief that desire alone is enough to change one's reality. A man will sit in longing, believing that his wants are prayers, that the mere act of wishing will summon the forces of the universe to bend in his favor. But this is not so. The universe does not respond to what is wanted. It responds to what is assumed. The mistake is in thinking that wanting something is an act of faith, when in truth it is an admission of its absence. To want is to declare lack. A man who wants wealth is confirming within himself that he does not have it. A woman who wants love is silently affirming that she is without it. And so, the world, being but a reflection of one's own consciousness, echoes back the same reality. Observe those who continuously seek yet never find. The one who desperately searches for companionship seems to only push love further away. The one who chases money finds himself in a perpetual cycle of financial struggle. The one who wishes for better health but remains fixated on illness only deepens his suffering. They believe they are asking, yet they are only confirming to themselves that what they seek is missing. The universe is not a judge, determining who is worthy and who is not. It does not operate on merit, nor does it grant based on effort. It is impersonal, reflecting only what is impressed upon it. The man who feels himself poor, even while working tirelessly for riches, will remain in poverty, for his state of being is not one of abundance. He labors under the illusion that action alone will change his fate, but his inner world is fixed in limitation. Likewise, the one who struggles for recognition, seeking approval and validation, will always find himself overlooked. For in his seeking, he proclaims that he is unseen, and so he remains so. The universe cannot grant that which contradicts one's own deep-seated beliefs. It does not hear words. It only registers states of being. To truly receive, one must be. The wealthy do not want wealth, they embody it. They move, speak, and think from a place of financial security, even before it has materialized in form. The loved do not seek love, They exist in the assumption that they are already cherished. The healthy do not long for healing. They carry within them the conviction of their wholeness. All change begins at this level. The moment an individual ceases to want and instead assumes, the world shifts. This is not mere positive thinking, nor is it wishful dreaming. It is the law of consciousness. The outer world is a mirror, incapable of producing anything other than what is reflected within. One may argue, but I do want a better life. Should I not acknowledge my desires? Desire in itself is not the issue. It is the clinging to desire, the identifying with longing that keeps one bound. The moment a man desires something, his next step is to assume its reality, not tomorrow, not in some distant future, but now. The difference between one who receives and one who remains in lack is this. The receiver does not stand in want. He moves into possession. He shifts his entire being into the state of already having, already being, already knowing. If one desires success, then let him walk as though success is already his. Let his posture, his thoughts, his conversations reflect a man who is already accomplished. If one seeks harmony, let her embody peace now, rather than waiting for circumstances to dictate it. If one learns for freedom, let him reject the identity of struggle and assume the ease of one who is already liberated. This is not about pretending or deceiving oneself. It is about stepping into a new state of consciousness. The individual must feel himself to be the thing he seeks. He must dwell in the assumption long enough for it to take root. Every great transformation in life comes not from striving, but from being. The beggar who remains conscious of his poverty will stay a beggar, no matter how much money is handed to him. But the one who shifts into wealth consciousness, even before a single penny has arrived, will find that the world moves to accommodate his assumption. This principle is absolute. The universe does not discriminate. It does not reward effort. It reflects identity. And identity is not shaped by wishes, but by assumptions. The individual must abandon the idea that longing is a virtue. It is not desire that shapes destiny, but the willingness to step beyond it, to be the thing longed for without hesitation, without doubt. To ask for something is to state that it is missing. To embody something is to claim that it is already done. The latter is the secret. The latter is what moves mountains. Let one now examine his own life. Not his desires, not his hopes, but his states of being. For therein lies the answer to every circumstance, every unfolding event, every manifested reality. The universe is not withholding, it is merely responding. And it responds not to want, but to who one is. The world does not shape itself according to what a man wishes. It shapes itself according to what he assumes to be true. A man does not receive that which he merely desires. He receives that which he embodies in consciousness. Every condition, every circumstance, every event in life is but the outpicturing of an inner state. To change the outer world, one must first change the inner state from which he operates. Desire, no matter how intense, remains ineffective unless it is accompanied by a shift in being. One may long for riches, but if he persists in feeling himself poor, poverty will remain his portion. One may crave recognition, but if he walks through life feeling unnoticed, his existence will continue to be one of insignificance. The law is simple. Consciousness is the only reality, and what a man assumes himself to be, that he inevitably becomes. All things exist first in the unseen realm of the mind before they take shape in the visible world. The great mistake is in believing that external effort alone is the key to transformation. Actions born from a state of lack will only reinforce the very lack one seeks to escape. It is not effort that brings about change, but the assumption that the change has already occurred. A man who wishes to be successful must not simply work towards success. He must first assume himself to be successful. He must embody the very essence of one who has already achieved all that he seeks. To assume a state means to think, feel, and act as though it were already so. It is not a game of make-believe. nor is it a matter of wishful thinking. It is a complete reorientation of the mind, a full acceptance that the desired reality is already present, even when the senses deny it. If a man who has known only struggle wishes to experience ease, he must cease affirming his struggles. He must discard the idea that life is difficult and instead assume that things come to him effortlessly. When this assumption is truly adopted, external conditions will shift to reflect it. Many will protest, claiming that they cannot assume what their senses deny. But the senses are only the outpicturing of past assumptions. The world one sees today is merely a reflection of what has already been accepted as true in consciousness. To persist in viewing reality as something fixed and immovable is to remain trapped in a cycle of repetition. But to understand that the world is a mirror, changing only as one's inner state changes, is to grasp the key to transformation. Consider the one who longs for love but feels unworthy of it. No matter how desperately he desires companionship, he will continue to experience loneliness if his state of being is one of rejection and isolation. His inner conversations, the thoughts he entertains daily, all affirm that he is alone. And so the world, being a perfect reflection, obliges him by presenting circumstances that reinforce his solitude. But if he were to assume that he is already deeply loved, that he is cherished and valued, his world would shift accordingly. He would no longer move through life as one who is lacking, but as one who is fulfilled. His interactions, his demeanor, his very presence would exude the confidence of one who knows he is loved. And inevitably the world would respond in kind. The same principle applies to every area of life. The one who assumes wealth, even before a single penny has arrived, will find that money comes to him in unexpected ways. The one who assumes health, even in the face of illness, will find his body aligning with the conviction of wholeness. The one who assumes success, despite what the outer world may suggest, will see doors open where before there were none. This is not a matter of forcing change, but of allowing change to occur by adopting a new identity. The shift is internal, and once it is made, the outer world follows with mathematical precision. The universe does not respond to effort, it responds to being. When a man becomes the thing he seeks, he no longer needs to chase it, for it will naturally gravitate toward him. Many make the mistake of thinking that persistence means effort, but true persistence is not struggle. It is faithfulness to an assumption. It is the unwavering conviction that what has been imagined is already real. The one who assumes his desire to be true does not waver in doubt. He remains steadfast, knowing that the world must in time reflect his inner state. Let one now examine his own assumptions. Not his wishes, not his dreams, but the state he truly occupies. For what a man assumes himself to be, that he is, and that alone will shape the world around him. To change life, one need not look outside himself, nor seek approval from others. He need only assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and the world will rearrange itself to match his conviction. Imagination is the creative force of the universe, the unseen power that shapes all visible things. Every event, every circumstance, every object in the external world first existed as an image in the mind of the one who brought it forth. Nothing appears by chance, nor is anything forced into existence by external effort alone. Everything that exists is first conceived within consciousness, and what is impressed upon the mind will in time harden into fact. A man's world is but his imagination pushed out. What he holds as true within himself becomes the reality he experiences. He does not simply observe life, he projects it from within. If he sees disorder, it is because disorder exists first in his consciousness. If he experiences struggle, it is because he has accepted struggle as natural to him. If he lives in a world of beauty and abundance, it is because he has assumed that such a world is his. The great mistake is believing that imagination is a tool for idle fantasy, a mere plaything for the mind. This misunderstanding keeps many bound to lives of limitation, for they use their imagination to reinforce the very conditions they wish to escape. A man who constantly envisions failure, who dwells upon hardship, who sees only obstacles, is actively shaping a world where failure, hardship, and obstacles must exist. He may believe he is merely reacting to life as it is, but in truth, he is creating it anew each day by the images he entertains. To truly change life, one must master the use of imagination. This does not mean daydreaming or wishful thinking. It means assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It means entering a state where the desired reality is more real than the one perceived by the senses. The senses may insist that nothing has changed, that the same conditions persist, but the senses only reflect past assumptions. The task is to move beyond them, to see not with the eyes of the body, but with the eyes of the mind. When an assumption is deeply felt and sustained, the outer world must conform to it. It is an immutable law that whatever is accepted as true within will in time be expressed without. This is why one cannot afford to indulge in negative imagination. Every fearful thought, every doubt, every picture of failure is a seed planted in the garden of the mind. And the mind, being fertile soil, will bring forth whatever is sown into it, whether wanted or not. The wise do not leave their imagination to chance. They do not allow the world to dictate what they believe to be true. Instead, they deliberately choose the images they hold within. They see themselves as they wish to be, not as they are. They walk in the assumption that all they desire is already theirs. They persist in this assumption, unmoved by appearances, knowing that reality must eventually reflect their inner conviction. The greatest transformations occur when one refuses to be deceived by what the senses report, and instead remains faithful to what has been imagined. It is not enough to momentarily entertain a new state. One must dwell in it. If a man would be wealthy, he must not merely think of wealth, he must feel himself to be wealthy. If a woman would be loved, she must not merely wish for love, she must know deep within that she is already cherished. It is not thought alone that creates, it is feeling, it is conviction, it is the unwavering assumption that what has been imagined is already real. Every invention, every work of art, every great achievement was once nothing more than an idea in the mind of its creator. It did not yet exist in the world of form, but it existed fully in imagination. And because it was held with conviction, it was brought forth into physical reality. The same principle applies to every aspect of life. The one who assumes success will find that doors open where before there were none. The one who assumes health will find his body responding to the state he has accepted. The one who assumes joy will move through life in a world that mirrors his happiness. Imagination is not passive. It is the very force that governs existence. The world bends to match the images held in mind. To use imagination wisely is to take control of life itself. The choice is always present. One may continue to react to circumstances, reinforcing the same patterns, or one may assume a new reality and watch as the world reshapes itself accordingly. Whatever is impressed upon the mind with feeling will harden into fact, for imagination is the only true reality. The world is but a mirror, reflecting faithfully the state of consciousness in which one abides. Every condition, every relationship, every circumstance is nothing more than a projection of what has been assumed within. A man may look at his surroundings and believe that they are separate from him, that they are the result of forces beyond his control. Yet this is the great illusion. The outer world is not independent of the inner world. It is its offspring, its shadow, its perfect reproduction. The mistake lies in believing that change begins outside of oneself. One sees lack and believes that acquiring more will remedy it. One experiences discord and seeks to correct it through external means. One encounters resistance and attempts to overcome it by force. But all these efforts are futile, for they address only the effect, never the cause. The cause is always within, and unless the inner state is transformed, the outer world will continue to reflect the same conditions, no matter how much effort is applied. A man who sees himself as powerless will find a world that confirms his belief. No matter how much he strives, no matter what opportunities are placed before him, he will sabotage them unconsciously, for he cannot accept what contradicts his inner conviction. A woman who believes herself unworthy of love will find herself repeatedly abandoned or neglected, for her world can only mirror back to her what she accepts as true about herself. One who lives in the assumption that life is difficult will meet endless obstacles, for the law of consciousness is absolute. The outer world must reflect the inner state. There is no escaping this truth. The world does not happen to a person, it happens through them. If they see injustice, it is because there is a belief in injustice within them. If they see failure, it is because they have identified with failure. If they experience constant struggle, it is because they expect struggle. And so long as these beliefs remain unchanged, the world will continue to affirm them, as reliably as a mirror reflects the face placed before it. To transform the world, one must first transform. The one who desires abundance must cease identifying with lack. The one who longs for love must abandon the identity of loneliness. The one who seeks success must cast off the belief in limitation. It is not enough to wish for change. One must become the thing desired. This is not a process of force, but of assumption. The moment a new state is accepted as true within, the world must conform to it. Most remain trapped in the cycle of reaction. They observe their circumstances and allow them to dictate what they believe. If they see failure, they assume they are failures. If they experience loss, they assume they are meant to struggle. If they are met with rejection, they assume they are unworthy, and in doing so, they reinforce the very conditions they wish to escape. They do not realize that their circumstances are not the cause, but the effect, and that to change them, they must first change what they accept as true within. The wise do not wait for the world to change before they assume a new state. They do not look for evidence before they believe. They understand that belief is the evidence, that assumption is the cause, and that once a new state is embodied, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. If one would experience wealth, let them assume wealth now. If one would be loved, let them feel the joy of being loved now. If one would know peace, let them dwell in the assumption of peace, regardless of external appearances. There is no power outside of consciousness. The world is not separate from the mind that perceives it. The seeming solidity of external conditions is nothing more than a persistent reflection of an internal state. The moment a new assumption is made, truly felt and accepted, the world begins its reformation. Events shift, circumstances realign, and people play their roles in accordance with the new belief held within. It is not magic, nor is it chance, it is law. Every man and woman walks through life surrounded by their own assumptions made visible. To look upon the world is to look upon oneself, for it is nothing more than consciousness objectified. The question then is not how to change the world, but how to change the self. For when the self is changed, the world must follow. The mirror can only reflect what stands before it, and the reflection can never be altered until the image itself has changed. To understand the nature of creation, one must first grasp that everything in the world, everything in life, is created from within. The external world is simply a reflection of what is held in the mind. There is no such thing as a world separate from consciousness. What we see around us, what we experience daily, is the outpicturing of the thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions that we entertain within ourselves. To change the world, one must first change what is within. This is not a matter of external manipulation, but of a complete reorientation of the inner world. It is not the circumstances that shape a man's life, but the man's perception of those circumstances. Two individuals may face the same situation, yet their experiences of it will be entirely different because of the way they view it. One may see an opportunity where the other sees a roadblock. One may find strength in the challenge while the other succumbs to weakness. What makes the difference is not the situation itself, but the inner state from which one approaches it. The world, like a mirror, reflects what is held in the mind. What you assume yourself to be, that is what you will encounter in your world. For this reason, circumstances are never the cause of a person's experience. The cause lies within. The beliefs, assumptions, and convictions that govern the way a person perceives and reacts to life. If a man believes that he is unworthy of success, he will remain in situations that reinforce that belief. If a woman feels that she is destined for struggle, she will encounter nothing but struggle. The law is simple. The state of consciousness determines the state of the world. If you are to change your world, you must first change your state of consciousness. The world operates on the law of assumption. This means that whatever you assume to be true about yourself and your world, that is what will manifest in your life. The mind, being a creative force, cannot distinguish between what is imagined and what is real. What is held in the imagination with conviction becomes a fact in the world. Therefore, if you wish to see a change in your circumstances, you must first see a change in your inner world. The secret to creation is understanding that everything begins with an assumption. It is not enough to wish for something to happen. You must assume that it has already happened. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the key. When you assume that your desire has already been realized, when you feel as though it is already yours, the world must rearrange itself to bring your assumption into reality. The power lies in the assumption, and the assumption is made real by the feeling that accompanies it. This is not wishful thinking, nor is it about imagining something with the hope that it will come true. It is about living in the assumption that what you desire is already a fact. When you assume a state, you act, think, and feel as though it is already true. You no longer wait for the world to give you permission to be, do, or have something. You embody the state of being, doing, or having that you desire. The difficulty lies not in the desire itself, but in the persistence required to sustain the assumption in the face of contrary evidence. The outer world may tell you that your assumption is untrue. Your circumstances may seem to be at odds with what you desire. But the key is to remain faithful to your assumption, regardless of what the senses report. The more you persist in your assumption, the more you allow it to become your dominant state, the more the world must conform to it. This is why it is so important to avoid identifying with circumstances that contradict your assumption. When you experience setbacks, difficulties, or challenges, do not let them become part of your identity. They are simply temporary reflections of old assumptions, and they will dissolve as you continue to live from the new assumption you have made. The world can only reflect what you hold in your consciousness, and as your consciousness shifts, the reflection will shift with it. The truth is that the world does not create your experience, you do. It is not the things that happen to you that shape your life, but how you interpret and respond to those things. If you believe that circumstances determine your experience, you are subject to a life of reaction. But if you understand that your inner world shapes the outer world, you become the creator of your experience. You take control of your life by taking control of your consciousness. The law of assumption works in every area of life, not just in one's material circumstances, but in relationships, health, and every aspect of being. If you wish to experience love, you must assume that you are already loved. If you desire health, you must assume that you are already healthy. If you seek success, you must assume that you are already successful. The assumption is the foundation from which all else flows. It is the key to unlocking the creative power within you. There is no mystery to creation. It is a law, as simple and certain as the law of gravity. What you assume to be true, you will see reflected in your world. The only requirement is that you must assume it with conviction, with feeling, and without doubt. When you embody the state of being that you desire, you will find that the world must rearrange itself to match your assumption. So the question is not whether you are capable of creating the life you desire. It is whether you are willing to assume the state of being that corresponds to that life. The only limit to what you can create is the limit you place upon your assumptions. The world is a reflection of your consciousness, and your consciousness is the key to unlocking the power to create your reality. The concept of self-perception is the cornerstone of creation. It is not what happens to a person that defines their life. It is what they believe about themselves that shapes their experience. To alter your external world, you must begin by altering the way you see yourself. The outer world cannot give you something that you are not first willing to accept within. If you believe yourself to be inadequate, incapable, or unworthy, the world will inevitably reflect that belief back to you. The moment you change the perception you hold of yourself, the world must change to reflect the new understanding. Each person walks through life seeing the world through the lens of their self-concept. The beliefs that you hold about yourself form the foundation from which all of your experiences arise. If you see yourself as someone who is unsuccessful, you will find every external event, every encounter, and every situation reinforcing that belief. You will see failure where others might see opportunity, and struggle where others might see ease. If you see yourself as someone who is always striving but never achieving, your world will continue to reflect that struggle, keeping you in a state of limitation. To change your world, you must first change the way you see yourself. Your self-concept is not merely a collection of thoughts and beliefs. It is the inner feeling that dictates how you experience everything. The assumption that you are unworthy, incapable, or undeserving is a powerful force that shapes your reality. However, the moment you decide to see yourself as capable, worthy, and deserving, you open the door for new possibilities to manifest. The change in self-perception leads directly to a change in the circumstances of your life. It is often said that you are what you think you are, but this is not entirely accurate. It is not simply about thoughts. It is about the deep feeling that accompanies those thoughts. A man may think he is worthy of success, but if he does not truly feel deserving, his outer world will continue to reflect that lack of inner conviction. The feeling of the assumption is what brings it to life, and it is the feeling that creates the inner foundation for external change. The thoughts may plant the seed, but the feeling waters it and helps it to grow into the reality that you experience. This is where the power of imagination comes in. Imagination is not merely a tool for daydreaming. It is the mechanism by which one can shape their self-concept. If you would be a person of success, imagine yourself already as that person. See yourself as successful, as accomplished, as deserving of all the good that life has to offer. Do not wait for external evidence to tell you that you are worthy. Assume the feeling of worthiness now. The imagination is the starting point for all creation, and what you imagine with conviction will eventually manifest in the world. To change your self-concept, you must cease identifying with past failures, past limitations, or past self-perceptions. These are only reflections of what you once believed, and they hold no power over you unless you continue to identify with them. The moment you release your attachment to the past and assume a new self-concept, the world will begin to shift to reflect this new identity. If you want to be wealthy, stop seeing yourself as someone who is struggling financially. See yourself as someone who is prosperous and abundant. If you want to experience love, stop seeing yourself as unworthy of love. See yourself as someone who is deeply loved and cherished. It is not enough to merely wish for change in your life. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you feel yourself to be the person you wish to become, the world must rearrange itself to match that assumption. The world is a mirror that reflects back to you the state of your inner world. If your self-concept is rooted in lack, struggle, and unworthiness, but if your self-concept is rooted in abundance, ease, and worthiness, your world will reflect that. One of the greatest misconceptions people hold is that they must wait for external conditions to change before they can change their self-concept. The truth is that the outer world cannot change until the inner world changes first. Your self-concept is not shaped by the world. It shapes the world around you. When you change how you see yourself, the world must reflect that new perception. The change is not a matter of waiting for circumstances to improve, but of changing the internal assumption that governs your life. The law of assumption is absolute. What you assume to be true about yourself and the world, that is what will be reflected back to you. If you see yourself as unsuccessful, you will encounter situations and people who reflect that belief. But the moment you shift your self-perception to one of success, the world must shift to reflect that. The law does not operate based on external circumstances. It operates based on your inner state. Your assumption becomes the mold into which the outer world must pour itself. To truly understand the power of your self-concept, you must begin to observe how you view yourself in your daily life. Are you constantly thinking of yourself as unworthy of success or love? Do you see yourself as someone who is always struggling, always striving, but never achieving? If so, these beliefs are shaping your reality. But the moment you decide to see yourself differently, to see yourself as someone who is worthy, capable, and deserving of success, your world will begin to shift in alignment with that new self-concept. The change begins within. The external world is but a reflection of the internal world. If you change how you see yourself, you change the reflection. The key is to stop identifying with the past, to stop accepting the limitations that were once imposed upon you, and to embrace a new self-concept that reflects your true potential. When you see yourself as the person you wish to be, the world must reflect that assumption. The power lies within your perception of yourself, and it is through that perception that you shape the world around you. There is a profound and fundamental truth that governs all creation. We are not victims of circumstances, but creators of them. The world does not dictate what we experience. Rather, it mirrors back to us the beliefs, assumptions, and inner states we hold about ourselves and life. It is not enough to simply acknowledge this law of creation intellectually. One must begin to live by it and understand its deeper implications. Life is shaped by the consciousness that we hold within us. And until we truly grasp this fact, we will remain trapped in patterns of limitation, reacting to the world instead of creating the world we desire. At the core of creation lies the power of assumption. Whatever we assume to be true about ourselves, our lives, and the world will inevitably manifest in our experience. This is not a matter of mere wishful thinking, nor is it about trying to manipulate the world through force or external effort. Assumption is the inner knowing that what we desire is already ours, that what we wish to experience is already a reality in the realm of consciousness. The moment we assume a state of being and live from that assumption, we set in motion a chain of events that must lead to the outward manifestation of that state. This is the law, and it works unerringly. The challenge, however, lies in the persistence required to maintain the assumption in the face of external appearances. It is easy to assume something when the world is affirming it, when everything is aligned with our desire. But true mastery comes when we can maintain the assumption, even when the outer world seems to contradict it. This is the test of faith. Will you continue to live in the assumption of your desired reality, even when the evidence appears to be to the contrary? The answer, if one is to master the art of creation, is yes. The outer world will always reflect the beliefs and assumptions we hold internally, and so long as we persist in our assumption, the world must rearrange itself to match it. The power of assumption works through the imagination. The imagination is the creative force of the universe. And it is through this mental faculty that we bring our desires into being. What we imagine with feeling, what we hold in the mind's eye as already real, will eventually take form in the world of the senses. But this is not idle daydreaming. Imagination must be coupled with feeling and belief. It is not enough to simply think about what we desire. We must feel it as though it is already ours, as though it is already real in the present moment. Only then can we activate the creative power that will bring it into physical manifestation. To effectively use the power of assumption, one must practice living as though the desire is already fulfilled. This is where many people falter. They may intellectually understand the process of assumption, but fail to embody it fully. The key is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and to persist in that feeling, regardless of the circumstances. The world of appearance is always in flux, but the feeling of the wish fulfilled is a constant. When you live from this feeling, the world must conform to it. You do not need to see the evidence before you. You must simply live as though it is already true, knowing that the evidence will follow in due course. The more consistently and deeply you assume the state of your wish fulfilled, the more quickly the outer world will shift to reflect it. This is the law of consciousness at work. The outer world is simply a projection of inner states. And once a new assumption is firmly established in the mind, the world must change to bring that assumption to fruition. It is a natural law, as dependable as gravity itself. However, the key to its effectiveness is not in the force of will, but in the depth of feeling. The more you feel the assumption is already fulfilled, the more quickly it will take form in your external reality. It is important to note that the process of assumption is not about manipulating people or circumstances directly. It is not about changing the behavior of others or forcing specific outcomes. It is about changing your internal state and allowing the outer world to reflect that state back to you. When you assume that your desire is already fulfilled, you shift into the consciousness of the person who has already realized that desire. This shift in consciousness is the key that unlocks the door to your new reality. You are not trying to change the world. You are simply aligning yourself with the version of the world that matches your assumption. Many people become discouraged when they do not see immediate results, but the law operates regardless of time. The key is to remain faithful to your assumption, to trust that the outer world will reflect what you have assumed in the mind, even if it does not immediately appear to do so. The more persistent you are in your assumption, the more quickly it will manifest. Time is not a factor in the law of assumption. It is simply the gap between the moment you assume the state and the moment it becomes manifest. Your job is not to worry about the timing, but to live from the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. The ability to maintain your assumption, to live in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, is the mark of a true creator. The world is malleable, and it is shaped by the consciousness that dominates the individual. The external world is not separate from you. It is your creation, a reflection of the thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions that you hold within. When you master the art of assumption, you gain mastery over your world. Your life becomes a conscious creation, an expression of your innermost beliefs and desires. The key to this power is simple. You must assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, and the world will align with your assumption. So the challenge is not to manipulate the world, but to live as the person you wish to become. The person who has already achieved the desired state is the one who sees the world in a different light, who assumes a different set of beliefs and perceptions. When you shift into that state, the world must shift to reflect it. This is the natural law of creation, and it operates within every aspect of life. It is a matter of consciousness and assumption. When you master this, you become the creator of your reality. There is a profound truth that governs the way we experience life, and that truth is rooted in the concept of imagination. The world, as it appears to us, is not a random collection of events and circumstances, but a reflection of the inner state of consciousness. Every experience, every encounter, and every event is shaped by the way we imagine ourselves to be and the assumptions we hold about life. To change the world around you, you must first change the world within. The key to this change lies in the power of your imagination. Imagination is not merely a tool for daydreaming or escapism. It is the creative faculty of the mind, the very mechanism by which all things come into being. Everything that exists in the physical world was first conceived in the mind. The chair you sit in, the car you drive, the house you live in, and every piece of technology you use. These were all once nothing more than ideas in someone's imagination. This creative power of imagination is not reserved for a select few, but it is available to everyone. The difference lies in how one uses it. To understand the power of imagination, one must first recognize that it is not about visualizing something in the future, but about feeling that it is already real in the present moment. The law of assumption teaches us that whatever we assume to be true about ourselves and the world, that is what will become our reality. However, it is not enough to simply hold an assumption in the mind. We must also embody that assumption with feeling. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the key to manifestation. It is the feeling that brings the imagined reality into being. Imagination, when used correctly, allows you to live in the end, to live as though the desired state is already yours. It is through imagination that we enter into the state of the wish fulfilled. If you desire to be successful, if you wish to experience wealth, you must imagine yourself as already wealthy. This is not wishful thinking or hopeful thinking, but the act of embodying the feeling of your desire as though it is already a present reality. One of the key aspects of using imagination effectively is to understand that your imagination is not limited by your current circumstances. It is not bound by the conditions of the physical world. The imagination operates in a realm that transcends the senses, and it is from this realm that all things are created. The physical world is but a reflection of the mental and spiritual states within us. The more vivid and real you make your imagined state, the more quickly it will appear in the physical world. The power of imagination lies in its ability to bypass the limitations of the senses. The world of the senses often tells us what is possible and what is not, based on past experiences and conditioning. However, imagination is not bound by these limitations. Through the use of imagination, you can transcend your present conditions and create a new reality. The more vividly you imagine a state, the more real it becomes in your consciousness, and the more quickly it will take form in the world. The key to effective use of imagination is to persist in the assumption of the desired state. This persistence is not about constantly thinking about the desired outcome, but about living in the state of being that aligns with that desire. When you imagine a specific reality, you must feel the emotions that would accompany that reality. If you imagine yourself as wealthy, feel the feelings of abundance, freedom, and security. If you imagine yourself in a loving relationship, feel the emotions of love, connection, and joy. The feeling is the bridge between the imagined world and the physical world. What is often overlooked is that the world you experience is a direct result of your inner world. Every external circumstance, every person you meet, and every event you encounter is a reflection of your inner assumptions and beliefs. When you begin to see this, you realize that you are not at the mercy of external circumstances, but that you have the power to shape your own reality. The world outside is simply mirroring what is within. The more you consciously control your inner state, the more control you have over the world around you. This is where imagination becomes the most powerful tool for transformation. It allows you to consciously create new assumptions, new beliefs, and new realities. It allows you to live in the end result, to live as though the desired state is already true. When you persist in this assumption, the world must conform to it. The law of assumption is absolute. What you believe to be true, what you imagine to be true, will be reflected back to you in your experience. It is important to understand that the power of imagination is not a magical force that works outside of the laws of nature. It is a natural law, just as certain as the law of gravity. When you apply the law of assumption and imagination, you are aligning yourself with the creative forces of the universe. You are working with the very fabric of reality to bring about the changes you desire. This is why it is so important to have faith in your imagination and the assumptions you hold. The world may seem to contradict your assumptions at first, but if you remain faithful and persistent, the outer world will eventually reflect your inner world. The process of creation is not an instantaneous one. Time may pass before the outer world catches up with your inner assumptions. But the key is to maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled, regardless of what the senses may report. The more persistent you are in living, in the end, the more quickly your imagination will shape the world around you. You do not need to concern yourself with the how or when of your desire's manifestation. Your job is to live in the feeling of the desired state and trust that the world will conform to that feeling. One of the greatest challenges people face when using imagination is doubt. The mind may argue that the current circumstances are not aligned with the desired state, that it is impossible to achieve what is being imagined. However, this doubt is merely the old assumptions at work. The key to overcoming doubt is persistence and faith. The more you continue to live in the imagined reality, the more doubt fades away, and the more the outer world conforms to your assumption. The power of imagination lies in its ability to transcend the limitations of the senses and to create a new reality. The world is not fixed, it is fluid and malleable, shaped by the consciousness of those who inhabit it. Through imagination, you have the ability to create any reality you choose. The only limit is the limit you place on your imagination. The more vividly and confidently you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the more rapidly the world will conform to that assumption. In the end, it is not the external world that determines your experience. It is your imagination, your assumptions, and your inner state that create the world you live in. The world is a mirror, reflecting back to you the beliefs and feelings you hold. Through the power of imagination, you can change those beliefs, shift your feelings, and create a new world of your own making. The power lies within you, and it is through your imagination that you shape your destiny. The essence of all creation lies in the power of the mind, and more specifically in the power of imagination. We are not passive recipients of life's circumstances, but active creators of the reality we experience. Our world is a mirror that reflects back to us the beliefs, assumptions, and feelings that we hold within. The law of assumption teaches us that what we assume to be true about ourselves and the world around us must manifest in our experience. The key to mastering this law lies in the conscious use of imagination, feeling, and persistence. When we align our thoughts, assumptions, and feelings with the reality we desire, we tap into a creative force that shapes our entire world. The outer world is not separate from us, but a direct reflection of our inner state. To change the world around us, we must first change the way we see ourselves and the world. This process begins within by changing our self-concept, assumptions, and beliefs, and living in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The power of imagination allows us to transcend the limitations of the physical world, enabling us to create any reality we choose. Time and time again, those who have understood and applied this law have transformed their lives, proving that we are the creators of our own experiences. In the end, the key to creating the life we desire is faith in the unseen, persistence in our assumptions, and a deep trust in the power of imagination. The world will always mirror back to us what we believe to be true about ourselves and the world. Therefore, it is up to each individual to consciously choose the assumptions and beliefs that will shape their reality. When we do so, we tap into the limitless potential that resides within us, and the world begins to reflect our new state of being, bringing forth all that we have imagined. The power to create is in our hands, and through imagination, we can bring forth any reality we choose.